Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are going to test out further the Colomi Minerals substrate, which I received a while back from one of my lovely viewers. Now, if you missed the video in which I talk more about it and actually use it in a certain way, I'll link you to it down below. As always, you have additional links all the time in my videos in the description. But for those of you who saw it, you might remember that we did actually discover there is more to this medium than meets the eye. This apparently, allegedly, it's not your typical pebble substrate. Apparently it does not have the same properties, and I did discover with using it that indeed there is more to it than we discussed. So today I'm actually going to try out the setup they propose for their medium. Now, before we start, big, huge, humongous disclaimer. Please don't take this as a tutorial. The title says testing, not how to. So don't understand that I am teaching you how to do this, that I'm okay with this medium, that it's perfectly fine. I think 99% of you guys know that I test a lot of things and it doesn't mean they work out. But because this particular setup, as you will see, is a high risk setup in my opinion, I just wanted to make it very clear. I wanted you guys to be well warned. If you want to try it out, that's great. But you know the rules here. Try it with one orchid first, see how it goes, and don't be surprised if it ends in disaster. I have a funny suspicion this particular setup will end in disaster, but you know what? Part of growing and learning and just becoming wiser is trying out stuff even if you think they will fail, right? So with that out of the way, let's just look a little bit at one of the orchids that I repotted last time, because I want to show you something very interesting. So as you might know, I used this medium as a top layer to prevent algae formation in my sphagnum moss pots. However, do you see the moss is very wet? Do you see the top of the medium? Some of these pebbles which are in contact with the water, they changed color, meaning they're actually absorbing some water. That's very, very counterintuitive because, well, let's see if you can actually tell. In reality, when you look at this medium, you would not say it's porous. It looks rather glossy, to be fully honest with you guys. It's like rocks. Apparently, it does absorb some water. Now, with the black one that I have, this was not so apparent because you cannot see the color going darker. It's already dark, but on light colors, you can totally see the pebbles are starting to absorb water, which I did not expect. So now let's just go on the website and see what the manufacturer actually says about the medium. So you'll have the link to the website down below. Now I'm just reading a little bit from their website. They say that molds and pests in the soil are inhibited. Now I can agree to that. I can see that in my inorganic setups in Leca and also in Ceramis, I didn't have any type of creepy crawlers, which are to some extent normal and natural inorganic medium. The springtails that sometimes you see, those are okay. But the gnats, those are a nuisance. In my Leca setup, I actually don't have gnats. This being an inorganic material as well, does not decompose. I can see how it will not attract gnats or other insects that feed on molds and decomposing organic material. Make sense? Makes sense. However, I'm not sure about the mold situation because it's not only the medium which will attract mold. If you have dead roots starting to decompose, they will attract mold as well. Anything that's organic can actually attract mold. And not only, there are certain types of molds which do go on inorganic surfaces. Ever had them on your walls? So I don't know about that. The soil remains stable in its structure, decomposes. I think they meant it doesn't decompose. I think this is an inorganic medium, maybe I'm wrong, and does not compact. Yes, I can agree to that. This medium is actually tough, rigid. I don't see how it can crumble and compact. It's not a soft material actually. It is active for at least 5 to 8 years through its own ion exchange, and because of the nutrients contained, an orchid fertilizer is no longer mandatory. Water softening is not required. Here's where my troubles start, because you might be tempted to think that, oh, it softens my water. It has some properties that actually reduces the hardness of the water. Well, I actually came across a PDF from them where sadly they explain a little bit more what they mean. They say carbonate hardness is actually diminished. Now, to give you a little insight in my background, I did fish keeping and aquascaping for about 10 years before orchids, so inevitably, whether I liked it or not, I bumped into water parameters and what they mean. Like any one of you, I'm betting, and I know what carbonate hardness is. it is not general hardness. It does not refer to the calcium and magnesium salts. Those are the ones we're interested in. I'll link it down below to the Wikipedia article on carbonate hardness, just so you get more familiar with these chemical terms. The carbonate hardness is a measure of the water hardness caused by the presence of carbonate. The term carbonate hardness is also sometimes used as a synonym for temporary hardness, in which case it refers to that portion of hard water that can be removed by processes such as boiling or lime softening, and then separation of water from the resulting precipitate. Well, the one we are actually looking for is the general hardness. General hardness is a measure of the concentration of divalent metal ions such as calcium and magnesium per volume of water. This is actually what makes water hard water. Boiling hard water will not make it soft, and for those of you who ever tried it, I think you know it is the case. No point in actually me testing it out. You can actually test it out by yourself at home. You can get one of those strips for hard water that Calgon sells or comes with the product itself. You can go to the pet shop, get yourself some testing strips. It's actually really easy. Bottom line, carbonate hardness or temporary hardness is not the main reason why our tap water might be hard. Carbonate hardness is the buffer. You know that I was telling you that pH in my osmosis water fluctuates really easy because my water is not buffered? Well, I meant that the carbonate hardness is very low, close to zero in the filtered osmosis water. And as the article suggests, you can get rid of carbonate hardness through various methods, even through boiling. But it doesn't mean that we will have almost no calcium and magnesium, or we will have so little amounts that the orchids will be happy, just like with rainwater. No, that's not gonna happen. So for this medium to suggest that it will reduce hardness by reducing carbonate hardness is very misleading in my opinion. And I did the test. Actually, in my last video, I left some of the rocks in my tap water, I think, and I measured it after a few hours. It was the same. What you guys don't know, maybe I still have it. Okay, it actually evaporated, but I hope you can see the level. I actually left it on there for days and weeks, and I checked the hardness of my water, and oh no, it wasn't going down. It was slightly going up because it was evaporating, and salts don't evaporate. They don't disappear through boiling or evaporation. All they do is just deposit on the surfaces. So no, these rocks don't lower hardness in the sense that we are expecting it to. So that's the first red flag for our little medium. Maybe that was a mistake. Let's go on with their website. They then say that the Colomi plant soil combines high functionality and appealing appearance because many orchids prefer transparent vessels for their growth. I would debate on that, but let's move on. It fertilizes, inhibits vermin and mold in the soil, is clean in processing, and does not decompose because orchids also need a lot of air at their roots. I'm guessing this is just a faulty translation, and yes, I am on the English version of the site. It's not my translator here, but yeah, they say here that it doesn't decompose, so I guess it's not organic. Whether an orchid top culture system or a glass jar, you can now cultivate both of them, the orchid, without any problems. I absolutely disagree with that. I love the orchid top pot. It's a very ventilated setup. I don't love vases, I have to say. They're very different. But yeah, I guess I understand what they're trying to say. And then they talk a little bit about repotting. Nothing that is of interest for us at the moment. So these are the claims, pretty bold. So what we're gonna do today is, of course, I'll get a Phalaenopsis volunteer. She's just so happy to participate. And I shall pot it only in this substrate, in this vase. This vase has no drainage holes, and I will try to make a sort of semi-hydro wannabe look-alike, not really, and make sure that I don't fill up with water this little vase, and just try to maintain a little water at the bottom, and we'll see if this medium actually wicks anything. It's going to be a little hard to actually test the parameters, but I think I know how to test the parameters in time. So with that said, I guess it's time to go for it and repot this little orchid. Alright, so my orchid is all cleaned up. I've cut away all of the dead roots. In the PDF that I actually found, I'm gonna try to link you to it down below. They also have a sort of tutorial on how to do this. So here is what I'm looking at. They say to remove the old substrate completely. We did that. Clean roots with lukewarm water. We did that. Dead roots with sharp scissors. Remove. Yes, Yoda, we did that. Roots must be up to the vessel bottom. Alrighty then. So we need to put the roots of the orchid down to the bottom of the vase. It doesn't look like they put a layer of substrate on the bottom, so we won't do that. And then just put the beads around the orchid, don't press, shake, pretty standard routine. And also they say to pour water after 24 hours so that the root injury can close. We won't do that because we don't actually have any root injuries. That's a piece of advice people used to do when I started orchid growing, but then they kind of snap out of it. In my experience, there's nothing wrong. Speaking about which, I actually did see an orchid video on YouTube a while back with a person who was cutting the roots, the dead roots, from the green part of the root in good tissue. Don't do that. It's not necessary. You're creating an open wound. It's important to cut into clean tissue when you're dealing with a leaf infection, stem infection, something like that. But when it comes to roots, don't do that. Cut in the dry portion. That way you don't have any open wounds. And just because the portion of the root is dried, it doesn't mean it's infected. We only cut into good tissue when things are infected. Dead roots are not infected necessarily. They're just dead. So maybe this rule was applied because maybe somewhere an article says to cut into good roots. Don't do that. It's really not necessary. All right, so let's get to work. I'm going to place my orchid. Let's see. Okay, I think this looks good into the vase, and then just pour some Colomi minerals. I like the name though, I have to say. And here we are, we're done. Then they say to pour about 25 to 60 milliliters of water. Well, that's very personal, depends what vessel you're using. Every 14 to 21 days, depending on the room temperature. Also, if there's water locking at the bottom, let's try to avoid that. Okay, so what they're saying is don't put too much water. So yeah, let's just pour a little water. I'm using actually a combination of osmosis with tap water due to the fact that I do want to do some tests off camera as time goes by. So let's see. And we can actually see the water on the bottom. Let's put a little bit more on this side as well. So we shall see in the following days if this medium will actually soak anything up, if the color will change dramatically. I think you can already see that the granules, which are wet, they do look like they're a little wet. In the end though, if these little rocks will perform just like little rocks, not like leca or ceramis, we will have pretty much a sort of water culture wannabe with rocks attached to it sort of setup, which I don't know if it's needed, to be honest, but we'll see. I'm not sure how the mechanism is supposed to work. If these rocks are wicking, they will actually direct moisture to the top, which is the principle of semi-hydro or self-watering or leca. If they don't wick anything, it's pretty much like a layer of rocks with some water on the bottom, and being that the roots are wicking themselves, they will just wick from the bottom. Maybe that's why we were supposed to not put a layer on the bottom, case in which, I don't know, is it actually useful? Do we actually need this? I don't know. So let me tell you why I think this setup is high risk. First of all, no drainage, and for those of you who are not yet acquainted with how to handle the level moistures in the pot, it's a little awkward to then just try to remove this water. I don't know if it's even possible. So it's a little awkward to work with. Second, there's no ventilation holes, slits or anything, therefore this orchid is kind of suffocated, I have to tell you guys. And you might think, oh no, wait, because this medium is airy. It's not as airy as you might think, not as airy as ceramis. This is kind of a closed setup, only open at the top. Not sure how that will work. And third, if something goes actually wrong, I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell in time. I'm not entirely sure if we're gonna have this orchid here for a week or 2 weeks or a month. So we'll get there, I'll keep you up to date if the case will be. But that's about it. Now let me just show you a little bit the orchid top pot, because they actually mentioned it, and show you how different the orchid top pot is. And here it is. This is the orchid top pot. It looks very different, right? I do have a presentation video for these pots. They are available in Europe at many shops, in the USA at Repot Me and probably other shops as well. Back then, I don't think Repot Me had them, and I remember many of my viewers were really bummed that they couldn't find these pots for sale. They're not the cheapest, I have to warn you. They have never been cheap, but they are pretty cool. They have a lot of ventilation slits, as you can see. This orchid is one from Jessica, and I hope you're proud. Look, she's growing a flower spike. She's doing great, so I think you can understand that no matter the medium you put in here, whether it's rocks or microfiber or sphagnum moss, whatever it is you want to put in this pot, you'll never have suffocation issues. It's impossible. There are so many slits here and they're so flexible that you cannot have something suffocating in this. There's also drainage down below. If you check the video in which I talk about them, you will see them without medium and without any orchid inside. Yes, if you put the Colomi minerals in something like this, they will be just as good as rocks. Probably, I'm just saying, from this point of view, from the aeration point of view. Whether the Colomi minerals have some other benefits, fertilizers, or they do something in particular, we're gonna find out. That's why we're doing the experiment. But there we go. If you wanna use an orchid top pot or anything ventilated like this, I think you can use rocks if you want, and everything will be okay. Alrighty, let's end it here. Enough blabbing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. I will keep you up to date, of course. You know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And also, if you like YouTube to notify you whenever I upload a new video, just turn on notifications for my channel. If you're interested in my other setups and what I use on a regular basis, just check the description. You'll find everything there. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!